The phone call came at 7:43 on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before the wedding I had spent a year planning and $120,000 funding. My daughter's voice was cold, businesslike, like she was canceling a dentist appointment instead of breaking my heart. "Mom, I need to tell you something. You're not invited to the wedding anymore." When I asked why, her answer destroyed 28 years of what I thought was unconditional love. But what Ashley didn't realize was that every florist, every caterer, every vendor who was making her dream day possible owed their biggest contracts to me. And sometimes, when someone discards the person who gave them everything, they discover that dreams can disappear as quickly as they're built. If you want to hear about family betrayal that cuts deeper than any stranger ever could, subscribe to the channel and hit like so the next story comes out even faster. My name is Margaret. I'm 52 years old, and I built my life around being the mother I never had. When Ashley was born, I promised her that she would never want for anything, never doubt that she was loved, never have to sacrifice her dreams because money was tight. I kept that promise, maybe too well. I worked 60-hour weeks as a real estate broker, missed soccer games and school plays, and put every penny I earned into savings accounts labeled Ashley's college, Ashley's car, and eventually, Ashley's wedding. When Ashley got engaged to David last year, I was thrilled. Not because I particularly loved David. He was fine, pleasant enough, the kind of man who said the right things at family dinners but never seemed particularly passionate about anything, including my daughter. But Ashley was happy, or at least she said she was, and I wanted her to have the fairy tale wedding she'd been dreaming about since she was 5 years old. "Mom," she said, showing me her Pinterest boards filled with $1,000 floral arrangements and designer wedding dresses, "I want everything to be perfect. I want it to be the kind of wedding people talk about for years." "Then that's what you'll have," I told her, opening my checkbook without hesitation. $120,000. That's what perfection cost. A venue that looked like a European castle, flowers imported from Holland, a 7-course dinner prepared by a chef who'd worked at Michelin-starred restaurants, a dress that cost more than most people's cars, and a photographer whose waiting list was usually 2 years long. I paid for all of it gladly, watching Ashley's face light up every time another detail fell into place. I threw myself into wedding planning with the same intensity one brought to real estate deals. I researched vendors for months, negotiated contracts, coordinated timelines, and built relationships with everyone involved in making Ashley's day special. The florist, Maria, became a friend after we spent hours designing arrangements that would transform the venue into a garden paradise. The caterer, James, started calling me personally when he had new menu ideas. Even the venue coordinator, Patricia, would text me photos of table settings and lighting tests because she knew how much every detail mattered to me. "You're the most involved mother of the bride I've ever worked with," Patricia told me one afternoon as we walked through the reception hall, finalizing the layout. "Ashley is so lucky to have someone who cares this much about making her day perfect." I thought so too. I thought Ashley and I were a team, working together to create something magical. She would text me photos from dress fittings, asking for my opinion on hemlines and accessories. We spent weekends visiting bakeries to taste wedding cakes and evenings addressing invitations while watching romantic comedies. It felt like the kind of mother-daughter bonding I'd always hoped for but never quite achieved when she was younger, and I was working so much. 2 months before the wedding, things started to change. Ashley became distant, distracted, less interested in the planning details that had consumed us for months. When I asked about the final headcount for catering, she'd shrug and say, "Whatever you think is best." When vendors called with questions, she'd tell them to handle everything through me. "Are you feeling overwhelmed?" I asked her one evening when she barely glanced at the menu cards I'd brought for her approval. "We can simplify things if you're getting stressed about all the details." "It's not that," she said, not looking up from her phone. "I just trust you to handle everything. You're so good at this stuff." I was proud that she trusted my judgment, but something felt off. Ashley had never been the type to lose interest in something she cared about, and she'd cared about this wedding more than anything I'd ever seen her focus on. 3 weeks before the wedding, I found out why her priorities had shifted. I was at David's parents' house for what was supposed to be a casual dinner to finalize some last-minute details when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. I'd excused myself to use the bathroom and was walking back toward the dining room when I heard Ashley's voice from the kitchen, where she was helping David's mother with dessert. "I just feel terrible about it," Ashley was saying. "But Caroline made it clear that if my mother is at the wedding, she won't come. And you know how important Caroline's family is to David's career." Caroline. I knew that name. Caroline Winchester, David's boss's daughter. Old money, connected to everyone who mattered in the law firm where David worked as a junior associate. "It's such an awkward situation," David's mother replied. "But you have to think about the future. Caroline could open doors for David that might never open otherwise." "I know. And it's not like Mom won't understand eventually. She's always been practical about these things. She'll see that this is about David's career, about our future." "What exactly did Caroline say about your mother?" Ashley's voice dropped, but I could still hear her clearly. "She said she'd heard Mom was, well, that she was new money and kind of pushy about business networking. Caroline's afraid Mom will try to use the wedding to promote her real estate business to Caroline's family and friends. She said it would be embarrassing for everyone." New money.
Pushy.
Embarrassing. I stood in that hallway, listening to my daughter describe me like I was some social climbing embarrassment she needed to manage, and felt something break inside my chest that I don't think ever fully healed. "So, what are you going to do?" David's mother asked. "I'm going to uninvite her. I have to. David's counting on making a good impression on Caroline's family, and if having Mom there jeopardizes that." Ashley's voice trailed off. "That's a big decision, honey. Are you sure there's no other way? Mom's already paid for everything, so the money part is handled. And honestly, she's been so controlling about every detail of this wedding that it might be nice to actually enjoy my own day without her hovering and managing every minute." Controlling, hovering, managing. I walked back to the dining room in a daze, somehow managed to get through the rest of the evening making polite conversation about flower arrangements and seating charts, all while knowing that my daughter was planning to throw me away like an outdated party decoration. For 3 weeks, I waited for Ashley to find the courage to tell me. 3 weeks of watching her lie to my face about final guest counts and table arrangements. 3 weeks of receiving texts about how excited she was for me to see everything come together. 3 weeks of pretending I didn't know that the wedding I was orchestrating was one I wouldn't be attending. The call finally came on Tuesday evening, just as I was reviewing the final timeline with the wedding coordinator. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Ashley said, her voice carefully neutral. "There's been a change of plans about the wedding." "What kind of change?" I asked, though I already knew. "You're not invited anymore. I know this is going to be hard to understand, but it's what's best for everyone." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. "What do you mean I'm not invited to my own daughter's wedding?" "It's complicated. David's boss's daughter is very connected socially, and she's concerned that, well, that you might use the wedding as a networking opportunity for your business. She thinks it would be inappropriate." Inappropriate. I repeated the word slowly, letting it hang in the air between us. "Mom, please don't make this harder than it already is. I know you'll be disappointed, but you have to understand that David's career is really important right now. Caroline Winchester could help him make partner eventually. We can't jeopardize that. So, you're choosing David's career over having your mother at your wedding." "I'm choosing our future. You've always taught me to be practical, to make smart decisions even when they're hard. This is a smart decision." I sat in my kitchen, looking at the wedding timeline spread across my counter, my daughter's voice echoing through the phone like she was speaking from another planet. "Ashley," I said quietly, "do you have any idea how much work I've put into this wedding? How much time, money, and energy I've invested in making your dream day perfect?" "I know, and I'm grateful. Really. But the work is done now. Everything's arranged. You don't actually need to be there for it to be perfect." "You don't need me to be there." "That's not what I meant." "No, I think that's exactly what you meant. You needed my money and my connections and my planning skills, but now that all the work is done, you don't need the actual mother." "Mom, you're being dramatic."
Dramatic.
There was that word again, the one Ashley had been using to dismiss my feelings since she was a teenager. When did you become someone who could throw away 28 years of unconditional love for a career networking opportunity? I asked. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm making a mature decision about what's best for my marriage and my future. You should be proud that you raised someone practical enough to make hard choices. I should be proud that I raised someone who would disinvite her own mother from her wedding to impress strangers? There was a long pause. When Ashley spoke again, her voice was cold. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want what's best for me. I do want what's best for you. I've wanted that your entire life. But I thought I was part of what was best for you. You are. Just not at the wedding. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at the vendor contracts spread across my counter. Florist receipts, catering deposits, venue payments, photography agreements. $120,000 worth of promises I'd made to give my daughter the perfect day. But here's the thing about being a successful real estate broker for 25 years. You learn that every deal has contingencies, every contract has clauses, and every relationship is built on mutual benefit. When someone breaks their part of the deal, you don't just walk away quietly. You use every tool at your disposal to protect your interests. And I had tools Ashley didn't know about. The next morning, I started making phone calls. Not to cancel the wedding. That would have been too obvious, too dramatic, too much like the pushy behavior Ashley was apparently embarrassed by. Instead, I made the kind of subtle adjustments that someone with my experience and connections could make without anyone tracing them back to me. I called Maria, the florist, first. Margaret, darling, how are the final preparations going? I'm so excited for Saturday. Actually, Maria, I need to talk to you about a change. Ashley just called me this morning in tears. Apparently, David's grandmother is severely allergic to white roses, and they're the main flower in all the arrangements. Ashley's devastated because she doesn't want to make David's grandmother sick, but she also doesn't want to completely redo the flowers 3 days before the wedding. Oh no, that's terrible timing. What would you like me to do? Could you possibly substitute something else for the white roses? I know it's last minute, but Ashley is so worried about making a good impression on David's family. Of course. I have some beautiful white carnations that would work perfectly. They'll look almost identical in the arrangements. You're an angel, Maria. Ashley will be so relieved. White carnations instead of white roses might not sound like a big change, but in the language of flowers, roses symbolize love and beauty, while carnations symbolize disappointment and rejection. Every guest who knew anything about floral symbolism would notice, but Ashley wouldn't understand the message until it was too late. Next, I called James, the caterer. James, I need to discuss a dietary restriction that just came up. Ashley's new sister-in-law has celiac disease, and they're worried about cross-contamination with the menu. Could you possibly switch to a completely gluten-free menu? I know it's a big change, but they're really concerned about making sure David's family feels welcome. That's going to require changing almost everything, Margaret. The gluten-free options are more expensive, and the taste profile will be completely different. I'll cover the extra cost, of course. Ashley is just so worried about David's family thinking she's inconsiderate. A gluten-free menu meant dry, tasteless substitutes for all the carefully chosen dishes we'd spent months selecting. The 7-course gourmet experience would become a series of disappointing alternatives that no one would enjoy, but everyone would be too polite to complain about. I called the photographer next. Patricia, I need to ask a favor. Ashley just realized that David's boss's wife is very camera shy due to some recent cosmetic surgery that didn't go well. Could you possibly focus the reception photography on candid shots rather than the formal portraits we planned? Ashley's worried that posed photos might make David's boss's family uncomfortable. Of course. I'll adjust the shot list to focus on natural moments and avoid any direct flash photography that might highlight facial details. Instead of the elegant, magazine-worthy portraits Ashley had dreamed of, she'd get a collection of awkward, candid shots that would never look quite right in wedding albums. I made similar calls to the band, requesting a more conservative playlist that would eliminate all the songs Ashley had specifically chosen. The baker, switching to a sugar-free cake due to dietary concerns, and even the transportation company changing the romantic horse-drawn carriage to a more practical sedan because of concerns about David's grandmother's mobility. By Thursday afternoon, I had systematically altered every single detail that Ashley and I had spent months perfecting. None of the changes were dramatic enough to ruin the wedding completely, but together they would transform her dream day into something entirely different, something disappointing, forgettable, and distinctly less than what she'd paid for. The beauty of my approach was that every vendor thought they were helping me solve legitimate problems to make the bride's family happy. None of them would think to mention the changes to Ashley in advance, and by the time she noticed on Saturday, it would be too late to fix anything. Friday evening, Ashley called me one more time. "Mom, I know you're hurt about not being invited tomorrow, but I wanted you to know that I really do appreciate everything you've done. The wedding is going to be perfect because of all your hard work. I'm sure it will be exactly what you deserve," I replied, and for the first time in our conversation, I was telling the complete truth. "Maybe after the honeymoon, we can have dinner and talk about everything. I think you'll understand better once you've had time to think about it." "I'm sure I'll understand perfectly by Sunday." Saturday morning, I woke up early and drove to a coffee shop across the street from the wedding venue. I found a table by the window where I could see the entrance and settled in with a book and a cappuccino. I wasn't attending the wedding, but I wasn't going to miss watching the guests arrive either. The first sign that something was wrong came when I saw David's parents arriving an hour late, looking confused and frustrated. Then I saw Caroline Winchester and her family walking quickly toward the entrance, their faces showing the kind of polite annoyance that comes from realizing you've made a social mistake. By noon, guests were leaving. Not all of them, but enough that I could tell word was spreading about whatever disaster was unfolding inside. My phone rang at 12:47. "Mom." Ashley's voice was barely controlled hysteria. "Something's wrong with everything. The flowers are completely different from what we ordered. The food tastes like cardboard. The photographer is taking terrible pictures. The band is playing music from the 1950s. Nothing is right." "That's terrible, honey. What do you think happened?" "I don't know. Every vendor is saying they made changes based on special requests, but I never made any special requests. David is furious. Caroline's family left after the appetizer course, and half the guests are talking about how disappointed they are." "I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help? Can you call the vendors? They all know you. Maybe you can figure out what went wrong and fix some of it." I took a sip of my cappuccino and watched another group of guests leave the venue, shaking their heads in disappointment. "I'm afraid it's too late for that, Ashley. When you make last-minute changes to a wedding, you have to live with the consequences." "But I didn't make any changes." "Someone did. And whoever it was, they clearly didn't have your best interests at heart." There was a long pause. I could hear commotion in the background, raised voices, someone crying, the sound of chairs scraping against the floor. "Mom," Ashley said slowly, "did you do this?" "Do what? Did you ruin my wedding?" I set down my coffee cup and looked at the venue entrance, where another family was walking quickly toward their car. "Ashley, you told me I wasn't needed at your wedding. You said everything was arranged, and I didn't need to be there for it to be perfect. You were wrong about that, but you'll figure it out eventually. You destroyed everything. You sabotaged my wedding because you were angry about not being invited." "I didn't destroy anything. I simply made some adjustments based on what I thought would be best for everyone involved. Just like you did when you decided to uninvite your mother." "This is insane. You're insane." "No, Ashley. I'm practical. You taught me that yesterday when you explained how smart it was to make hard decisions for the sake of your future. I made some hard decisions too. David's boss thinks we're incompetent. Caroline's family is telling everyone about what a disaster this was. You've ruined David's career prospects and humiliated us in front of everyone who matters. I guess you'll have to find a different way to advance David's career. Maybe through hard work and talent instead of social connections." Ashley was crying now, deep sobs that probably would have broken my heart 2 days earlier. But that was before I learned that the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for saw me as an embarrassing liability to be managed. "I hate you," she said through her tears. "I will never forgive you for this." "You'll forgive me eventually," I replied calmly, "because I'm your mother, and despite what you said yesterday, you do need me. You just forgot that for a while." I hung up and finished my coffee while watching the last of the wedding guests leave the venue. By 2:30, the parking lot was nearly empty except for vendor trucks and a few cars that probably belonged to the cleanup crew. My phone buzzed with text messages throughout the afternoon. Angry messages from Ashley, confused messages from David, even a few from family members who'd heard about the wedding disaster and wanted to know what had happened. I didn't respond to any of them. 6 months later, Ashley showed up at my door on a rainy Thursday evening. She looked older, tired, like someone who'd learned some hard lessons about the difference between networking and friendship. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside and led her to the living room, where I'd been working on contracts for a new property listing. "David left me," she said without preamble. Caroline Winchester made it clear that associating with our family was bad for business after the wedding disaster. David's boss started giving him smaller cases, fewer opportunities. David blamed me for ruining his career prospects, and I blamed you for ruining the wedding. We spent 6 months fighting about whose fault it was until he finally moved out last week. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I've been thinking a lot about what you said on the phone that day, about how I didn't need you until I did. And you were right. I spent my whole life taking your support for granted, assuming you'd always be there no matter how I treated you. When I decided to uninvite you from the wedding, I thought I was being mature and practical. I thought I was making a smart decision about my future. Ashley sat down across from me, her hands folded in her lap like she was a child again. But I wasn't thinking about the future at all. I was thinking about one day, one impression, one opportunity that seemed more important than 28 years of love and sacrifice. And when it all fell apart, when David left and Caroline's family forgot I existed and the networking contacts disappeared, you were the only person who was still there. I've always been here. I know. And I threw that away for people who were never really there at all. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the rain was getting heavier, drumming against the windows like a reminder that some storms have to run their course before the sky clears. "I'm not going to apologize for ruining your wedding," I said finally. "I know. And I'm not going to pretend that what you did didn't hurt me. I know that too. But if you want to rebuild our relationship, we can try. It will have to be different this time. You'll have to earn back the trust you threw away." Ashley nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I want to try. I want to be the daughter you deserved, not the one who was too selfish to see what she was giving up." It took 2 years to repair what Ashley had broken in one phone call. 2 years of weekly dinners, honest conversations, and Ashley learning to appreciate what she'd always taken for granted. She found a job at a nonprofit organization, discovered that she actually enjoyed work that felt meaningful, and started building a life based on her own values instead of other people's expectations. Last month, Ashley got engaged again, to a man who loves her for who she is, not what she can do for his career. When she asked me to help plan this wedding, I said yes, but with conditions. This time, I told her, we're partners. Equal partners. You don't get to make decisions about my involvement based on what other people think. I understand. And this time, the wedding is about celebrating love, not impressing strangers. I understand that too. Ashley's second wedding was beautiful in a completely different way from the first one. Smaller, simpler, focused on the people who actually mattered instead of the ones who might be useful someday. The flowers were roses, real roses, not substitutes. The food was delicious. The photographs captured genuine joy instead of performed perfection. And I was there, in the front row, watching my daughter marry someone who saw her value instead of her potential utility. During her maid of honor speech, Ashley's best friend mentioned how lucky Ashley was to have a mother who would do anything to protect her, even when that protection looked like punishment. Ashley caught my eye across the reception hall and smiled. Not the practice smile she'd worn during her first engagement, but something real and grateful and a little bit sad for all the time we'd lost. After the reception, as we were cleaning up, Ashley hugged me tight. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For loving me enough to let me fail. For caring more about who I became than what other people thought of me. For being the mother I needed instead of the mother I thought I wanted." I hugged her back, breathing in the scent of her hair that still smelled like the little girl I'd rocked to sleep for so many years. "That's what mothers do," I told her. "We love you enough to let you learn the hard lessons, even when it breaks our hearts to watch." Some people would say I was wrong to sabotage Ashley's first wedding. They'd say I was petty, vindictive, that I should have taken the high road and let her learn from natural consequences. But those people don't understand what it means to watch someone you love more than life itself throw away everything that matters for something that doesn't matter at all. Sometimes love looks like sacrifice. Sometimes it looks like support. And sometimes it looks like making sure the consequences of bad decisions arrive quickly enough to prevent worse ones. Ashley learned that family isn't disposable, that love isn't conditional, and that the people who matter most are usually the ones you can't afford to lose. She learned it the hard way, but she learned it. And sometimes, that's the most important gift a mother can give, the chance to discover what really matters before it's too late to do anything about it. The wedding that cost me $120,000 and taught my daughter that she couldn't live without me was worth every penny. Because in the end, the best investment isn't in perfect flowers or gourmet food or impressive guest lists. It's in making sure the people you love know their own worth, even if you have to ruin a few weddings to teach them.